Good evening, everyone. Cybercrime is constantly evolving, and even though there's no central version tracking, Thorsten Holz has named his talk Cybercrime 2.0, and he's going to discuss botnets, in more specific peer-to-peer botnets, and one specific example, the Stormworm. Please give him a warm welcome.
Okay, thanks a lot for the nice introduction. As already pointed out, my name is Thorsten Holz. I'm a PhD student from the University of Mannheim, and today I'll talk about Stormworm, one of the most advanced malware binaries currently spreading in the wild. And probably you've read in the media already some numbers of how many thousand IPs are infected. And today I'll try to give an overview of how large the threat is, how many victims we've actually seen in the wild, and then I'll also talk a bit about the actual background of this, which basically shows how advanced modern cybercrime really is. This is joint work with Moritz Steiner, who is another PhD student at the University of Mannheim, and Frederik Dahl, whom I supervise as part of his diploma thesis, and in his diploma thesis he's working also on peer-to-peer based botnets. Okay, to the outline of my talk. In the beginning, I'll briefly talk about the history and also the system-level aspects. Since I'm more working in the area of network-level things, I'll focus in doing the talk more on this network-level stuff, how the bot communicates with each other, how they use a peer-to-peer protocol, what the challenges are on how to track it, and then in the remainder of the talk, I'll provide an overview of the measurement results, giving some real-world numbers of what we've seen in the area of Stormworm. And I'll conclude just with a brief overview of the future. So what can you expect for 2008 and 2009? Stormworm is probably one of the most hyped malware binaries out there. There were a lot of media articles about it. Every major press had an article. It was also mentioned in TV shows, in the news and everything. So for example, the Washington Post, I think they had up to now about 10 articles. Wired had one, Fox News, CNET, Heise had numerous articles. I think the last one was actually yesterday. So it's quite a lot in the media, quite a lot of wrong numbers are given there. Some people talking about 10 million of compromised machines, which is definitely not true. It also doesn't have the power of a supercomputer, so I'll try to give some more real-world numbers today. The worm, or the malware binary, is actually named after Kyrill, which was one of the biggest thunderstorms last year in February. And the name actually refers to one of the topics of a spam mail, which 230 deaths as Storm batters Europe. So basically, the media just took this subject of a propagation mail sent by Storm, and so this is the name used in the media, while the antivirus company typically use other names, PCOM, Nuwar, Celatin. Those are all different names for just the same binary. So the common problem is, like with other malware binaries, each AV company basically has its own name, so it's pretty hard to track who is talking about what there. The first sample I found was dated December 29, 2006, so about 1 year ago, where the spam mails basically talked about a Happy New Year, so it was just some kind of greeting card. And then, as an attachment to this mail, there was a malware binary where the people just had to click on the binary and then they are infected. And this is one of the specifics of Storm. Basically, it does not propagate via scanning, so it does not try to exploit vulnerable systems, vulnerable network services, but it just uses social engineering. So it just sends out spam mails, and the people have to click on a link, open the attachment, or do other things. So basically, it's just social engineering, and this seems to be enough to compromise thousands of machines, even in 2007. Where most people should be at least educated to not click on everything that they receive in the inbox. The people behind Storm are pretty active, so I think there's no real information who is behind this, but I guess that they have a larger team by now because they are constantly evolving. So In total, I've seen now more than 19 different social engineering campaigns run by them. So they change frequently. For example, if there's some event of public interest, for example, Independence Day, Labor Day. Now they had something for Christmas, for New Year's Eve, or they also have general themes, for example, free games, where they talk in the spam mail about free games that you can download. They have the postcard, the greeting cards, which was pretty effective for them. They even had a very short run with privacy concerns, where the spam mails had a content of that you should be aware that somebody could spy on your network traffic, therefore you should download Tor. They also had some on just greeting cards for the NFL season, for Downloader. So they are constantly changing the social engineering campaign. They're constantly changing the binary. They have probably one of the best malware binaries out there that they have developed, constantly evolving. So I think this is a large group, and probably they make probably some money with it. So it's modern cybercrime. This is just a picture showing how effective or how much spam they are actually sending. We have several spam traps up and running, which collect between 5,000 and 10,000 spam mails per day. And this is for a period of about 55 days. Basically, it shows on the x-axis just the day, and then the y-axis the number of spam mails received on this particular day, just for the e-cards. So just spam mails that they talk about somebody sent you a greeting card, please click here to view it. And we see that they can send hundreds of emails, and typically between 2 and 5% of the spam mails we receive in this spam traps are just originating from Storm. And on several days we also had more than 10 or even 20% of the spam mails just being Storm related. They quite often also change their campaign. This is for a period of about 20 days in October this year, where they, starting at October, there was Labor Day, so they had a special campaign where they were just talking about Labor Day in the emails. And then they switched for one day to Tor. Then they had, to the start of the NFL season, they had spam mails talking about an NFL tracker, and then they started with the free games. So they are constantly changing, and therefore it's pretty hard to keep track of it. And also the AV companies and security companies have a pretty hard time to basically follow everything. The spam mails themselves look always the same, basically some kind of very easy story. Your son has sent you movie quality e-card from mycardmaker.com. Click on the link. This is another one, another one. So basically it's always the same, always some pretty standard text, and then just a link that's included. And for the people who do not know how to click on something, they even provide sometimes instructions of how to copy and paste. So owning made easy. If you click on something, then you'll see a website. Probably they also have somebody who's doing graphics, since the website looks pretty nice now. This was the NFL one for the start of the NFL season. And if you click on any of those links, you get a binary on, about which I'll talk later on. These are the free games where you could download something, and every click leads you to a binary. There was the Hello Kitty. Then they had the dancing skeleton for Halloween. This was actually now in December 24th, so for Merry Christmas. And this is then the current campaign. I don't know what's wrong, but basically the web page now looks very, very boring. So it's just some text, and then you just can click there, and then you can get the latest binaries. Actually, these domains started to show up, I think now 2 days ago. I think the New Year card 2008 is actually from today. So this is currently live traffic. And then if you open one of those, so if you click on the mail, you get to this website, which I showed some screenshots for. And then if you take a look at the source of the web page, you'll see just obfuscated JavaScript. So at the top, you'll see, it's a JavaScript. It has an XOR string, something, where they basically dynamically generate the code. So the whole text is as first XOR encoded. They just decrypt it during runtime, and then basically this content also changes every couple of minutes. So they re-encode the actual website every couple of minutes. Decoding is rather easy. Basically, you just take this JavaScript, feed it to a JavaScript interpreter, which could be, for example, JS. So njs-javascript.org, or Melzilla, which basically takes the SpiderMonkey engine, which is the JavaScript implementation of Firefox, and then you can basically just feed the JavaScript and it decrypts everything for you. And this works most of the time. With the newest version, so with the version they use since 4 days or so, it's a bit more complicated since the JavaScript is more heavily obfuscated, but nevertheless, since it's just JavaScript, it's pretty easy to get the real code. Once you have decoded or de-obfuscated everything, we will find various exploits. The standard browser exploit like setslice or VML, and then they also include exploits for common browser modules, for example, for the Yahoo Messenger, for the WinZip file view, and basically for all those browser plugins that you can install for IE, they have the right exploit. So not only focusing on exploiting the browser, but also exploiting actually add-ons. Actually, when you click on it, the website also, or the PHP script also checks whether the user agent indicates Firefox, Internet Explorer in 2 different versions, and only if the user agent matches, and if this is your first request, then you get the actual exploit, and then if you reload it again, then you don't get it. So it's just a one-time hit, where they basically also cache locally the IP address, which is pretty standard for the web-based attacks nowadays. In total, they have 3 different kinds of exploits. So one for Firefox and 2 different ones for IE, depending on which version of IE you're running. And then they basically fire those exploits and hope that one of them triggers and exploits a vulnerability. And then they install a binary. Or the other option is that the user just clicks on something, and then it basically asks the user whether he wants to download and install it. And then basically if the user just clicks OK, then he infects himself, which we probably cannot prevent. OK, once the binary is at the local system, it basically starts up. It drops the rootkit. It stays in kernel mode. Then it also hooks several API calls. It injects itself into TCP/IP to basically stay under the radar. So it has some pretty neat tricks. Most of them are outlined in the paper by Frank Boldewijn, reconstructor.org. In the paper pcom.c, Cracking the Nutshell, he shows how to unpack it and also shows some of the advanced techniques that Storm uses. And since I want to focus more on the network level aspects, I'll just talk about 2 things that are important for me now. The first one is that it uses W32TM, which is a tool shipped with Windows, to synchronize the local time via NTP. So each Storm-infected node has an accurate clock, which is probably the only benefit of being infected. And this is used later on to basically, since they do some computations based on the time, they need roughly an accurate clock at an infected machine. And the other important thing is that the binary also drops a contact file, which contains IP addresses of other infected systems, so that they have some kind of starting point for the peer-to-peer-based mechanism. So if you remember your of how you use peer-to-peer-based networks, you also need to know some peers in advance to basically connect to the network, and this is basically the contact file. And one premise of our research is that we analyze the bot as a black box. Basically, we do not reverse engineer the whole binary, since this takes too long, especially since they are changing this every couple of days. Then I would just sit within Ollie or within IDA to analyze the binary. Therefore, we try to treat it as good as possible as a black box, just run the binary and then just take